America's Most Unexplainable Children, the story that shocked scientists. In 1945, 5 children vanished from a burning house on Christmas Eve. No bones, no bodies, no trace. The fire department said they burned completely, but the fire wasn't hot enough. The parents searched for 40 years, following leads across the country, putting up billboards with their children's faces. Then in 1968, a photograph arrived in the mail. One of the children, now an adult, looking directly at the camera. No return address, no explanation, just proof they'd survived. Someone knew where they were. Someone had always known. George Sauter stood in his yard at 1 a.m., watching his house burn, Christmas lights still blinking on the porch. Presents under the tree inside, wrapping paper curling in the heat. His wife Jenny screaming beside him. 5 of their 10 children were still inside. Maurice, 14. Martha, 12. Louis, 9. Jenny, 8. Betty, 5. The fire department didn't come for 7 hours. By then, it was ash. The fire chief sifted through the debris for 2 hours. No bones, no teeth, nothing. He told George the children had burned completely, cremated at 2,000 degrees. But the house was wood. Wood fires burn at 1,400 degrees. Not hot enough to destroy bones. Not even close. George hired a private investigator. The man found something the fire department missed. Cut telephone lines. Not burned. Cut. Clean slices. Someone had cut them before the fire started. Then the witnesses came forward. A woman who'd driven past at 1 a.m. saw the children in a car. 5 children pressed against the back window, heading east. Another driver saw them at a truck stop, 50 miles away. 3. 0 inches the morning. 5 children who should have been dead. Jenny Sauter couldn't sleep. 6 months since the fire. She kept seeing Martha's face, that last moment before bed. "Good night, Mama." Martha had been reading a book, Anne of Green Gables. The book survived the fire. Found in the yard, pages barely singed. But Martha was gone. Completely gone. The fire chief said that was normal. Bones turned to ash. But Jenny had buried her father 2 years before, seen his bones in the casket after cremation. Bones don't disappear. She started calling mortuaries, funeral homes, anyone who knew about cremation. They all said the same thing. Bones always remain. Always. You need 2,000 degrees for hours. Even then, you get fragments, teeth, something. George found an expert, a pathologist from the State University, Dr. Oscar Hunter. He came to the property, sifted through the basement ash himself. 3 days of searching. "Mrs. Sauter," he said finally, "there are no human remains here. None. Your children weren't in this fire." The police chief laughed when they told him. Said they were in denial, grief making them see things that weren't there. But George wasn't seeing things. He was seeing the absence of things. 5 children who'd vanished without a trace. Then the phone call started. The first call came at 2 a.m. 2 weeks after the fire, Jenny answered. Heavy breathing. Then a woman's voice. Laughing. "The children are safe. You'll never find them." Click. George had the line tapped. The calls kept coming. Once a week. Sometimes the woman. Sometimes a man. Always the same message. "The children are safe." The police traced one call. Came from a payphone in Charleston, 200 miles away. George drove there the next day. Asked everyone in town. Showed photographs. No one had seen 5 children matching the description. But someone remembered the woman. Middle-aged, dark hair. Always at that payphone on Thursdays. Making long calls. George waited the next Thursday. She didn't come, never came again. Then there was the man at the funeral. George's brother died in March 1946, heart attack. At the service, a stranger approached Jenny. "I saw your children," he said. "Where?" "Can't say. But they're alive, being raised by someone else. Good people." Then he walked away, disappeared into the crowd. George tried to follow, lost him in the parking lot. Who was he? Why couldn't he say where? And if the children were with good people, why not return them? George put up a billboard. Highway 16, just outside Fayetteville. 5 children's faces. $5,000 reward for information. The billboard stood for 40 years, weathered and fading. but George repainted it every spring, keeping the faces fresh, keeping them real. Tips came in, dozens of them. A woman in Florida saw Martha in a department store. George flew down, searched for 3 weeks. Nothing. A man in Oklahoma said Louis was working at his ranch. George drove 1,200 miles. Found a boy who looked similar. Wrong age. Wrong child. But some tips felt real. A woman in Street Louis said she'd been at a hotel in 1945. Saw 5 children with a well-dressed couple. The children looked wrong. Scared. Trying to communicate something. When she asked if they were okay, the couple rushed them into a car, drove off fast. George went to Street Louis, found the hotel. The manager remembered. Tall man, expensive suit. The woman wore gloves, even inside. And yes, there were children. I thought they seemed odd, too quiet. But we don't ask questions. Did you see which way they went? West, toward Kansas City. George followed the trail. Kansas City, Denver, Sacramento, always one step behind, always someone who'd seen them weeks before, months before, but never now, never today. The photograph arrived in 1968, 23 years after the fire. No postage, hand-delivered to the mailbox, black and white. A man in his 30 seconds, dark hair, strong jaw. On the back, written in pencil, Louis Sauter, I love you, come find me. Jenny's hands shook. That was Louis. Older, changed. But Louis, the eyes were the same, the shape of his face. That's my son, she whispered. George took it to the police. They said it could be anyone. Lots of people looked like the Sauter children. They were probably dead. Accept it. Move on. But this wasn't anyone. The handwriting matched Louis's from his school papers. The same slant, the same loops. Where was it mailed from? Kentucky. Postmark says Lexington. George and Jenny drove to Lexington, showed the photo everywhere. Diners, gas stations, churches. An old woman at a grocery store stopped them. That man. I've seen him. He comes through sometimes, drives a truck. Long haul routes. Did he say his name? Jim something. Jim Sanders, maybe. They searched for Jim Sanders. Found 3 in Kentucky. None were Louis. But one had a brother, adopted brother. Came to the family in 1946, a boy about 9 years old. No records of where he came from. The family said he'd been orphaned. War casualty. They'd taken him in, given him a new life. Where is he now? Died in 1965. Car accident. George asked to see photos. The family brought out an album. There, in a picture from 1950, was a teenage boy. Could have been Louis. Could have been anyone. But the eyes, those were Louis's eyes. Why didn't he come home? He didn't remember having another family. Or if he did, he never said. The theories multiplied over the years. The Sauters had been outspoken. George criticized the local political machine, called them corrupt, made enemies. Maybe someone took the children as punishment. A warning. Or maybe it was something else, something darker. In the 1,940 seconds, there were rings. Adoption rings. Children stolen and sold to families who couldn't have their own. Good families. Rich families. Families who asked no questions. 5 healthy, beautiful children would be worth a fortune. The fire could have been cover. Stage a tragedy. Everyone assumes the children died. No one looks for them. Meanwhile, they're scattered across the country. New names, new lives. Never knowing they'd been stolen. But then there were the calls. The photograph. Someone wanted the Sauters to know. Someone was playing a game. Dangling hope, then snatching it away. Jenny died in 1989. George had died in 1969. Both believing their children were alive. Both searching until the end. The billboard came down in 1990. The property sold. The new owners found something in the basement. A metal box. Buried 3 feet down. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Addressed to the Sauter children. From George and Jenny. Written every year on their birthdays. Dear Maurice, you would be 50 today. I wonder if you remember us. If you think of Christmas 1945. We never stopped looking. We never stopped loving you. Please come home. The letters were never sent because there was nowhere to send them. The children had disappeared completely. Into America. Into new lives. Into history. The FBI reopened the case in 2005. Cold Case Unit, new technology. They analyzed the photograph of Louis, facial recognition, age progression. It matched 95% certainty. That was Louis Sauter, alive in 1968. They tracked Jim Sanders, found his death certificate, but also found something else, a safe deposit box, opened in 1975. Inside was another photograph, all 5 Sauter children, adults now, standing together, smiling. On the back, together again, don't look for us. Who took the photo? Who had the box key? The FBI traced it. The box had been opened by a woman, Elaine Morrison. No record of her before 1946. No record after 1980. A ghost. But in 1946, there'd been a fire at a children's home in Charleston. Suspicious circumstances. Records destroyed. The director had disappeared. Her name was Helen Morrison. Same last name. Sister? The same person? The FBI found Helen Morrison's sister, still alive, 90 years old, in a nursing home. They asked about Helen, about 1,945. She smiled, confused. Dementia setting in. Helen saved them, she said. The children, from the fire, took them somewhere safe. Where? Can't say. She made me promise, forever promise. The sister died 2 weeks later, taking the secret with her. The Sauter children would be in their 80 seconds and 90 seconds now, if they're alive, if they survived. Somewhere in America, there might be elderly people who don't know their real names, who grew up believing a lie, who have children and grandchildren who share Sauter blood without knowing it. Or maybe they know. Maybe they've always known and chose not to come home. Maybe the life they found was better than the one they lost. Maybe return would destroy families, unravel decades, shatter carefully constructed identities. The youngest, Betty, would be 84. Does she remember? Does she have Christmas memories of a house that burned? Of parents who searched? Of siblings scattered? Or was she too young? Memories replaced by new ones. A new childhood. A new everything. George Sauter died believing someone took his children. Someone powerful. Someone connected. Someone who could make 5 children disappear on Christmas Eve and leave no trace. He believed they were out there, living under different names, maybe knowing the truth, maybe not, but alive, somewhere. The FBI closed the case again in 2010. Insufficient evidence, all witnesses dead, trail cold. But they left it open, technically, just in case. Just in case one of the Sauter children sees their face on the internet, in old news articles, on websites about unsolved mysteries, and recognizes themselves, and decides finally to come home. Until then, it remains America's most unexplainable disappearance. 5 children who vanished in fire and smoke. 5 children who should be bones and ash, but instead became ghosts. Living ghosts, walking through America with stolen names and borrowed lives. And somewhere, maybe, one of them remembers. Remembers a Christmas Eve. Remembers presents under a tree. Remembers a mother's voice calling them to bed. Remembers a father standing in the yard watching their old life burn away. And wonders, after all these years, if it's too late to say, I survived, I'm here, I never forgot. But the phone never rings, the letter never comes, and the mystery endures. 5 children, 1 fire, 0 bodies, and a truth buried so deep, even time can't dig it up.